Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan, and today we're here to talk about the Challenge All Stars for Episode 4. I'm joined by my lovely co host. We have the Vermontian Zoe Trimboli,
Hi, everyone.
the Southern Luke Wency,
What's up, guys?
and this week we got a elimination matchup of a lifetime. Maybe not the elimination itself, definitely wasn't perfect, but we got an All Star season. We get All Star matchups. I'm hyped. I think the show we're watching right now is pretty damn good.
I'm really happy. I thought like this, like in spite of the elimination we got, I thought the episode was really good. I'm happy.
We were so close to greatness with this episode, guys. We were just, I think, like, I'm with you. I'm so happy about the season in general, but man, this one is gonna haunt me for years. This choice of elimination, but we'll get to that later.
It's such a struggle too because there's so much about All Stars that makes me like t- podcasting and writing and talking about this show becomes very difficult because I turn off my brain while watching All Stars. I just enjoy it. It's good nostalgia. It's good TV. It's just really relaxing and puts me in a good mood. Like even when it's crazy drama, like I'm just enjoying myself. So then we have to come back here and come up with stuff to talk about. I turn my brain off. I don't know what to say here.
Well, and I find too, like with the main show, I watched the episode once, and that's it for me. All Stars, I'll find myself watching it Wednesday. I'll watch it Friday, and maybe the day before it's supposed to come out, I'll watch it again, just because there's so many things to unpack, and there are just so many good personalities and moments that it's just fun to watch again and again. And then we come here to talk, and it's like, oh shoot, I just had like a nostalgia hour, and I got to talk about it. But no, I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff to talk about in this episode, thankfully.
So much to talk about. I sometimes watch these episodes with people who don't regularly watch the show and just their reactions to this season compared to the other show. Like they're so much more into it instantly. It's just so much better. I'm so grateful that we have this season to talk about. It makes our job so much easier in some ways. Even if like we do just sit back and relax, like they're we're not like pulling teeth trying to come up with things to talk about. They give us plenty.
Plenty. And let's just jump right into it. Go into the episode. We come back from the daily challenge, or we come back from the elimination. Rachel has given Tina Star to Veronica, as we saw. Keefla is riding high off his elimination win, like you should. Um, and is there really anything else to talk about before we go into the daily challenge?
I just think that we need to mention that Tina was okay. Like we knew that kind of last episode, but I was halfway expecting her to be like, "Why did you do that? Why did you whatever?" But she understands that it's so early, and also if you took it from Kara, that's a shot at Kara, and also that makes Rachel the biggest threat. So I was happy to see that Tina could keep her cool in this moment. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, same page.
We then move on to the daily challenge, where it's, I think, a really cool daily challenge. It's a throwback daily challenge from the Inferno 3, except they put it, they give it a twist. They play in teams of 5 where they're all attached to a rope off the side of a semi truck. There's a bunch of knots interconnecting them. They have to unknot all 5 of themselves, get across the semi truck, and move a peg through a puzzle maze from all the way at the beginning person all the way to the end person. Um, and the team to do it in the fastest time wins the daily challenge. Great daily challenge. It took strategy, it took communication. Um, there's a heights element. You needed some patience, and you needed speed. Anyone could win this. It was cool
What's my only complaint?
that they didn't show us the times.
Exactly. That's it. Other than that, I really liked it. I liked the process of like them having to maneuver their bodies to unbraid themselves because it was just a 5-strand braid, right?
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. And then once you're finished, you're not just done. I really liked it.
yeah. And if you're smart, there's a pattern to it, but whatever, we'll get into that.
Right.
Um, I will say I really enjoyed watching this challenge, but as someone that needs personal space and hates to be touched, I did not envy them one bit. I cannot imagine being on the side of a semi and like having to like basically like somersault and roll and just be squished in between these people, some of whom you may not even like or might smell bad.
And there's some tiny, tiny people in this cast, and there's some bigger, like, you know, they're bulky, heavy people. It was funny for me to watch at least.
Yeah, it was great. I'm with you on the times though. I don't understand why, even if they didn't show us each time after they were done, why can't we see a list of times? You can make it up.
Right.
Just pretend like you're doing things above board. Like, give us some sort of actual data to look
Right.
at.
I'm also just thinking, like, in my head, this daily challenge probably took forever to do. And imagine just being on the side. Like, how long do you think they're up there? Probably like 20, 30 minutes and just being attached off a truck for that long? Maybe shorter than that, but like it had like
Yeah, there's no way to know.
It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been 15. It could have been 30. Like, we literally have no idea, and that is a testament to just a little bit of information goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so the teams were random again. And this was actually the week they felt the most random, I will say.
Yeah.
I think it seemed like they obviously tried to keep it relatively even gender wise. But yeah, it was the first time it truly felt random.
In the first heat, we had a team of Jay, Avery, Jasmine, Brandon,
And Tina.
and Tina going, and I thought, ooh, this is chaos. Ooh, this team is maybe not gonna be the best. And then we had a team with Kara, Brandon, Ace. Oh no, Kara, Brad, Ace. My bad. And two other people whose names are escaping me right now. They were in the bottom group.
Flora. No. Yes.
Yes, she was, and Veronica. And let's jump into that group right now immediately because that group was an absolute mess. Which before the daily even starts, Kara was like, "Oh, Ace did this daily challenge on the Inferno 3. He's great with strategy." A lot of very.
She was like asking people if they were in the Boy Scouts and if they knew how to braid, and
It made me uncomfortable, and it brought me back to like a Kara from the past that I knew. But yeah.
I think it was clear that if Kara wasn't going to be the leader of this team, there was no leader of this team. And that was what happened to them.
And Brad also just messed it up.
He's just
Brad's terrible at communication. Just straight up, he gets loud. He gets all over the place. He gets panicked.
He gets frantic. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not someone like, I think that Brad is good at many things, but leading a group of 5 people in a chaotic situation is not where he's going to shine. And like, Ace doesn't have it in him. Laura doesn't have it in him. I think Veronica in her prime had it, but does not anymore.
I would agree.
Veronica and Flora were the two struggling the most with just moving itself off that semi truck. They were not working well at all. Brad's energy was infectious onto Kara and Ace, who even if Ace had a brain in this moment, he's just not going to step up in that moment. He's just never the guy who gives 110%. And their team was just a mess.
Yeah, disaster.
The other team, though, they actually ended up being pretty good. And who do you want to give compliments to for that team? Because I feel like they all worked pretty well.
When I first saw them, I thought if they can keep their heads about them, they're all similar size. Like, they're all not huge. So I thought that would work to their advantage in this challenge. The fact that they weren't, like, Jasmine didn't have to climb over Kifla, like, that I thought would help them. Or I think Jay stood out again.
Because, refresh me, it was Jay, Jasmine, Avery, Tina,
And Brandon.
And Brandon. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll say it again. I'm impressed by Jay. I've been impressed by Avery, and not that she's been a standout. I mean, she's been in the top-ish the entire time. Something about her is just like kooky. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, even just like watching her stand before the daily, I'm like, something's like different about her.
That's so funny because I think that like I look at her and I'm like, I think that's someone you want on your team. Like she seems to me like she's like locked in and like ready to like try. And she seems like the kind of person who can listen to people, which I think is one of the most important traits you can have.
Agree. And I think this ties, or my point ties into Allan saying the other week that like you can read what she's thinking. I think she's thinking smart thoughts, but like it always looks like she's wanting to say something and just like waiting for the like pristine opportunity. So maybe that's why I think she's kooky, because you can kind of just tell like there's thoughts going. And maybe I've just started noticing that because Allan said it. But I agree. I mean, her performance so far this season, I'd want her on my team.
Yeah, I would say she has the opposite of Brad energy, where Brad just like gets frantic and he says whatever dumb thoughts are in his head. Avery just holds those back. She knows her place. She listens. She waits, and when given the opportunity, she moves and works really well. I'm also just like, I think she's a really good athlete. Like based on these episodes, I think just the way she moves is just like very athletic. This team is good.
I go back to being more angry at production for keeping her off this show for so long.
Yep.
We then had the next heat, which was we had a team who was very confident they were going to win, which consisted of Leroy, Adam, Keefla, Nicole, and Rachel. And Nicole, of all people, was very quick to be like, was she, or no, it was Keefla, my bad. I think, who said, like, oh, I can't believe they gave us this team. Like, we locked it up already.
Yeah. And Rachel said, don't jinx us. And he was like, there's no jinx in this. There was.
They were so bad. I mean, I don't expect Nicole to do anything well when she has to use her brain in any capacity, frankly. Like, I'm going to die on that hill. I Leroy's never been a leader, right? Like, he's not going to take charge. Rachel is a very strong competitor, but her greatest strength is not her brain.
And I was gonna like to chime in right now on Rachel. I couldn't help but think that like she knows what to do, but doesn't know how to enunciate it to everybody else, because she feels like maybe it should be common sense, or maybe she feels like they'll just work together. I couldn't figure out why she maybe wasn't stepping up, because I see her as competent.
Yeah, I wish that she had attacked it as like a trainer. Like, it just, this is, you are in charge. These are the people taking your class or doing your workout routine, whatever. Like, I wish that she had just attacked it like that, because I think she could have gotten that team in line more. Because Adam's competent and he doesn't have enough of an ego that he's not going to listen. And I would say, obviously, the same is for Leroy. I don't think he has a massive ego. He would listen to anyone if they were saying the right things. I think the biggest wild card is Nicole, because Nicole just doesn't think.
Yeah, and Keepla's a big dude too. So like navigating around him.
It's hard. It will be hard for him. But if you can make him the sort of stationary person that everyone else had to jump over,
right,
then it worked.
Yep.
Keefla,
and
I was gonna say Keefla just doesn't have much experience at all competing in daily challenges as well. So especially being at a heights thing, this is like probably his first heights thing in 20 years.
Well, and even if he had, it would have been 20 years ago. And I am shocked, Zoe, that nobody picked up that strategy of, okay, Keefla or X person on the team, you just stay right here while we move around your body. But like they didn't.
I just like think about a braid, right? Like there's a pattern. It's going to be the same rotation. Like you should be able to get into a rhythm. I say this from my couch, so take it with a grain of salt, right? Like
same.
Zoe, you're calmly asking, did anyone do Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? Did anyone do these? Not, no, I'm kidding.
I put new shoelaces in my Converse the other day. It feels like kind of the same thing.
I've done a fishtail braid before. You know, that's 5 strands.
That's impressive, Luke. You would have killed this challenge.
I know.
Carmery would have wanted you on her team.
Yeah. I think we do have to note, though, before we move on to the winning team, Adam Larson was also just an agent of chaos during this challenge for his team, where he was just going wild and just all over the place. Like literally everyone on our team's like, what the hell is Adam doing? Which we've been complimenting Adam to a high degree the past few weeks. I didn't like this guy in the daily challenge at all.
That's what happens when no one takes charge, though. Like, someone has to be in charge.
And in no world would it ever be him. So like with no direction, he's just going to do exactly that and flail about.
Yeah, someone either needs to look at the crazy person and say, you're in charge now. You can do what you need to do, but you need to tell the rest of us what to do. Or you need to tell the crazy person to sit down, shut up, and just follow directions.
The winning team was great with directions, though. They took command, and which was Laurel, Cam, Ryan, Steve, and Derek, which I think we're going to give 30% of the credit to Cam and then 70% of the credit to Laurel, because Laurel figured out the braiding of this thing and the unlooping, and she was commanding people, and Cam was also on top of that as well. They were just a dynamite duo together in this daily challenge.
They're the perfect people to have in charge because of their competence and confidence in this way, and like physical competence as much as their mental competence. Like, Laurel is an athlete who understands how to do things. Cam is a bona fide leader. Like, she knows how to be in charge. And I want to give some kudos to these three men, though. I think because of the lack of ego of these three men, they were so comfortable to take direction. Steve says it in like a playful way, which I wish he had made it a little more jokey, in that he takes direction from women every day in his life. But whatever. I think it is a testament to Ryan, Derek, and Steve that they were just like, you're in charge and we're following your orders.
It was cool to watch. I was kind of waiting for the shoe to drop and Laurel or Cam to get mad at one another just because they both are leaders, but it was cool to see them lead together. This is kind of a side note, but I think it's relevant. I still wish we could have seen the reconciliation unfold on All Stars 4 because the last season they did together, they were not fans of each other at all. And like it seems like from the jump this season, they've been happy, buddy, like out with drinks together, which is cool to see. But I feel like I'm missing a piece there. And of course, World of Worlds 2 was years ago, so time heals most wounds. But like, I don't know, I'm missing that piece.
I'm guessing it was never that deep for either of them. And I mean, who knows? Like, I don't know what their like social media status was prior to the season. Were they following each other? Because even that alone could just be like, I'm over it. But I would have been nice to at least see a conversation between the two of them. I'm curious if it was acknowledged at all. Like, because Cam said something about it in the first episode, that, or maybe in a preview.
At some point, yeah. I think it was in a preview thing when they showed the World of World 2 beef between them.
Yeah, she definitely said something about being worried about it, but yeah, nothing. And then they just kill it on this challenge together.
Yeah, I mean, and Laurel's always down to bury a hatchet and rekindle a relationship that's been failed. So, like, yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. So that team wins the daily challenge. The bottom group, though, it's Rachel, it's Cara, it's Flora, it's Nicole, and it's Veronica. Once again, Rachel's at the bottom, Cara's at the bottom. A lot of options, but back to Laurel now. Let's talk about this because they come back from the daily challenge, and Laurel is like this was like Laurel's standout moment. And last week we were talking about how Laurel has been kind of underwhelming all season. This week she's in power. She looks like a top competitor again. Nicole is at the bottom again, where she just has not been very good at these daily challenges. And we see the relationship begin to rekindle. And to me, Nicole sees a shiny object and she wants to ruin it mostly.
And I can't even give her that much credit. Laurel is feeding into this. Like, Laurel sees a dull object and wants to just buff it out some more. Like,
it's just like puke emojis. Like, that is just, I think because I just don't get it on such a, like, what is this attraction? I truly don't understand. I just don't get it at all. So that part is hard for me for starters. Every time Nicole opens her mouth, I'm like,
Well, and like I just remember this part of the episode. Laurel says there's still a lot of things we need to talk about, which maybe for her this is just closure, partly just I don't think that it is, but I'll give her that benefit of the doubt. And then Nicole says, I just don't know how to say it, which I believe, but that is the biggest cop out. When you try to have a conversation with someone and they say, I just don't have the words to express it. Yeah, you do. Like if you're a competent adult, you know how to piece together words, even if they're the most basal words possible. You can do it. She just doesn't want to have that conversation. She just wants to flirt and have her fun. Ugh.
so I work with children, right? I work with a lot of kids who have a lot of trouble taking accountability for their actions because it's hard. It's uncomfortable to admit that you do things wrong or that you even did something unintentionally that hurt someone. That is a really hard skill. And that's not a skill I expect children to have. But I do tell them that when they get older, that in order to have like good relationships with people, you have to be able to simply just take accountability and ownership of the mistakes that you make and then show that you're not going to do it again.
Right.
So I don't understand Laurel basically feeding Nicole lines to say to her about how she's going to be better when she has literally never taken accountability. She just says, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry is a place to start. Just like, I did something wrong. Bare minimum.
And I would be the person that would know this, so my fault for not. But did they break? Was their last time together X on the Peak, or do we think they've rekindled since? Had to have, right? And
I
just
think it
broke
was
it off.
actually week.
Okay, well, if that was their last, then Nicole could very easily say, I'm so sorry for cheating on you while you're in the same house, prioritizing a stranger over you, and then humiliating you in front of a whole group of people on national television. That would be the best start.
But I don't think Nicole thinks that Nicole did anything wrong. I truly don't. I think Nicole sees herself as a victim in most scenarios. I don't think Nicole ever really cares about other people's feelings. I think Nicole has cheated on every woman she's ever dated.
Because wasn't it on X on the Peak that Nicole's ex or current fiance or somebody came back and then she dropped the alley girl and the alley girl was like, wait, this is who she is? And it's like, yeah, like look at her. We say this all the time. She only got with Laurel because Cara didn't want her. Like, I cannot imagine allowing myself to be second fiddle for years. And I think it's mostly shocking because Laurel is such a strong woman who seems to have the most confidence in the world. And she's allowing this little feeble rat to like control her and weasel her way back into her life. Gross.
I just think when you look at Laurel's dating history or romantic interest on the show, besides Horacio, Laurel is always into the most self-absorbed people this show has ever seen. From Kenny to Jordan to Bear to Fessy, all
CT.
to CT. I would say CT's even he's self-absorbed, but he's on the more humble side of her interest. Um, like I think there's some competitive element in Laurel's brain where she needs someone who's in love with themselves more than her because she wants their attention for some reason. I think that's where it comes from. And I think that like she has this little winner's high from winning daily challenges. She's feeling like that old Laurel again. She feels valuable and she's like, okay, maybe I can actually fix Nicole this time and actually get her attention. And Nicole is just going to be toxic and bring her down the whole time and bring down Laurel. And it's gonna. I'm sorry, yeah.
That was good, Allan.
Yeah, that's really good psychoanalyze thing because that's I also was thinking I need someone who's not blocked by Laurel to send her the Tortured Poets department because really there's so many songs on here that really I feel like she will connect with.
God.
When you started saying that, Allan, I was like, sorry, so many people who don't give a shit about Taylor Swift, but the song "I Can Fix Him," no, really, I can. I was like, oh my god, change the pronouns, and here we are.
Yeah, for real.
If you also for people at home, if you need the real life equivalent of like what happened this episode between Laurel and Nicole, it's like when you post a photo on your Instagram story and that ex that really hurts you hits like on it. That's the real life equivalent of this moment. And yeah. Now,
But then you take a step further and you message that ex to say, "Hey, what's up? Do you feel
exactly.
bad about what you did to me?"
And then start flirting, like
Right.
really, like blatantly flirting, touching knees while wearing a towel, and it was just
Crouching down at her crotch and Nicole being like, "Whoa, whoa, let me back up." It's like, did you really need in that drawer? Or okay. Anyways.
oh, so much to unpack. It's just, it was a lot.
Nicole stinks. And what's crazy too is that like this moment with Laurel, it's really a desperation moment too, because she stinks because people are now in the house thinking about who to vote into elimination, and they're talking about the idea of going big and going for the strong competitors. And Nicole's name is nowhere on the radar. And you know why? Because on these all-star challenges, there's always a mental side of the game, and so far, Nicole hasn't impressed anyone.
There is nothing. The only reason I would be worried about Nicole in a final is if they are paired for portions of it and she has someone that can carry the mental load.
Yeah.
Which with a one winner format, I don't see why that would happen.
Same.
Now, it is funny. This is the moment where we have the middle group, which was the Jay, Avery, Brandon, Tina, and Jasmine group, where they now have all the power to vote 2 women into elimination, which is like crazy that it comes down to just these 5 votes, but also kind of cool and leads to more drama. The ideas on the table are Rachel and Veronica to split up the friendships, or Rachel and Cara to get one of the strongest players out of the game.
Which makes sense. Like, I'm not looking forward to the discourse on Twitter about this because it just makes sense. It's not like this like thing where people hate Cara, people like it. They're the strongest women, and everyone that said this is a compliment, even TJ later, not to jump ahead, but says this is a compliment. It's just that. Now, do I think the people voting necessarily handled it correctly? No. I mean, and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead. I'm sorry, but I feel like this is relevant. Jasmine and Brandon really want to vote Cara in. Like, they know that they have a friendship of some sort, but Brandon says this is a one-person winner. I don't like my odds against her in a final, so I've got to do this for myself. If it were 2 winners, I know for a fact he would not throw her in. But like, it just makes sense. Do I think he should have had that conversation with her before maybe they put that out there? Yes.
I really understand and respect where Brandon's coming from. Jasmine was okay. Jasmine to me was talking with the confidence of someone who had really been convinced by Cam to do this. I don't think I think it's a good move for Jasmine. I think everything she said is totally legitimate. She's never going to beat either of them in a final. Like, it's absolutely the right play. She has no shot at winning if all the strongest players are left at the end. It's just a fact. But the way that she was like rallying people to do it, I don't think that was coming from her per se. I think that she got hyped up. And I think that person that hyped her up was Cam. Again, smart play on both of their parts. Brilliant. But it was like a lot of false vibrato for me coming from her. But again, the correct play.
Yeah. Throwing Veronica in, what does that do?
There's no reason to get rid of Veronica ever.
No.
Let's just say it. Like, literally keep her around till the final.
Wholeheartedly agree. Avery in this situation was like, wait, Rachel and Cara, one of them could be out. Me as the middleman in this game, I get a vote. All right, yeah, I'm putting my vote there, especially because we saw Avery last week win the daily challenge. Was like, oh, am I gonna go in? Oh no, I don't want to face Ion and Rachel. So she wants one of those strong players out of the game, so she has a better chance to get a star down the line. I thought it made sense for her. This isn't the same as Battle for a New Champion, where like Horacio and Kylan got thrown into elimination again and again, because it's like that was the smart move because those were the biggest threats. But now with the star, there is incentive to where like yes, they get thrown in again and again as the biggest threat, but they at least they get something out of it when they win now.
Yeah, I agree.
Cam, I think, put a lot of gasoline on the fire for this move.
Yes, but even thinking about last week too, like I almost feel like I was a little bit too harsh in my criticism last week because it makes sense. And I don't think that Cam is dumb. I think that Cam can play over emotional to be a facade for her just really wanting Kara out of the game. Kara's crushing it. I mean, this week wasn't so great, but she could blame that a lot on her team. It'd be really hard to take your friend out without like acting like there's a motive or a reason. So like if she's got to be an actress, we've seen her do it before.
Yeah, and someone said in the comments, and I totally agree with this, like we are also, just because of what Cam is dealing with lack of sleep, just exhaustion from having to pump, just having a baby, all those hormones that are still like coursing through your body, like also being a mother, being away from your baby and how that affects your emotions. Like we are going to see a more emotional side of Cam. She's not, I think, and I would be shocked if she was like completely level-headed and rational all the time while going through all that she's going through. So I think it makes total sense that we might see a more emotional version of her.
Yeah, and I think too this is maybe one of the first time that Cam has had like one of her close allies not back her completely. Like this is the worst example, but like I think about Kaylee on World Wars 2, Kaylee was a yes man for Cam, like to the bitter end, and Cam appreciated that and in all respects took Kaylee to the end with her. I think this shocked her to see that that's not the game that Kara was going to play, which no fault to Kara, but they just are they're playing two different games.
It's exactly what I would expect them to do.
Right.
There is someone playing for Cara Maria though, and that was Jay was the only person in the crowd who was like, I'm not voting for Cara. I think she's a really strong player. I think if she wins, she'll look out for me down the line. And I don't know whether this is just like him playing like a very safe game, like I'm not gonna upset her, or him hoping that maybe Cara will give him a star at some point. Because as impressive as Jay has been in these daily challenges, I don't think he's really built for eliminations, and he's gonna have to find a way to get a star.
I think it, especially with the way that the votes were leaning, I think it was a smart move by Jay. I don't think, I think there's been so many people who've taken a shot at Rachel now that no individual person has anything to fear about Rachel, because she has to just like throw a dart at a dartboard and pick someone that's voted her in now. Almost everyone in the house has done it. So if he's just saying, I'm going to put my foot down about Cara Maria on the chance that she comes back, I think it's smart. I think that especially with how he's seeing her other allies treating her in this moment, he's positioning himself higher on a list of someone that's really likely to win.
I agree. It's smart because he pulled the Kara from last week. Kara saw where the cards were falling, did not choose Rachel, gained favor from Rachel. Jay's likely looking to do the same.
We're 4 weeks in, and his streak of never finishing in the bottom of a daily challenge is still intact. He's the only guy on the cast so far who hasn't finished at the bottom.
What can I say? He's an all-star.
We're living in the bizarro world. That's all I can say. So they go into the vote itself. Jay is the one vote, that didn't go for Cara. Everyone else is voting in either Rachel. And when it gets to Tina's vote, no, we'll talk about that later, actually. But just Rachel and Cara get voted in. That's the simple part of it all. They get voted in. Cara comes back and she reacts, I think, very loudly with, well, we're going to put on a show for everyone. She just makes a big show of it all. And it reminded me a lot of Johnny Bananas. And I think Kara's game this season actually has reminded me of Bananas, of like when Bananas was at his peak and he was just manipulating people and he knew how to like react sourly to stuff in like ways to just shift favor in the house and like kind of intimidate people at times. Um, but some people didn't take lightly to it.
I mean, Kara, as much as she at times seems meek, I mean, maybe not this season, but in previous seasons or like out of the loop, she self-produces in a smart way. I'm not saying that it's bad. Like she knows how to be the star of a season. We've seen it season and season and season and season. It was probably a foregone conclusion that she was going in realistically and thought, okay. But this also ties into I can't blame her and I don't want to completely give her this Johnny Bananas title. I get it. So I'm going to roll with it with you. She had real allies. If anybody, Brandon, could have went to her and said, here's what's going to happen and here is why you can prepare yourself. I don't really blame her. If I were in a house with Zoe and Zoe came out and said, all right, Luke, we voted you in and didn't come to me beforehand to just explain why, I'd be like, well, what the hell? I thought that we were allies here. Like, you can undercut me because it's a game, but like, you don't have the decency to talk to me about it. And I didn't like how Jasmine was like screaming at her too about just like, it's an effing game. Carver comes back to get me, comes back to get me. Yeah, and this reaction is probably going to help that too. Like, you just say, I'm so sorry.
I think jumping to a Johnny Bananas reaction is a bit unfair. I
I,
I think Kara's been so chill this season. I think Kara is literally just letting her performance speak for itself. I think that she just has a reputation and people are scared of her. I don't know that I think that her reaction was pretty natural. I think this is such a twisted world we're living in that I'm the one saying all this right now. But I think that her reaction was really human. I think she was pissed because I think she went in feeling really confident. I don't think she does the work to make sure that her relationships are what she thinks they are. I think she just thinks that her history with people and her reputation will carry her. And I don't think she knows what kind of work Cam is doing towards Kara behind her back. I think there's a lot of elements there. I think Jasmine took it 0 to 100 like she always does. Kara was simply just being like, I had your back, and she got loud because that's what she does. But I think the Brandon thing really hurt her. Like
Right.
that reaction that when Brandon tells her that I voted for you, she's hurt. And like she removes herself and just has a moment. And Ryan goes to check on her, but she's like, this was the one person she really thought she could count on in this house. And maybe that's an assumption that's silly because they haven't spoken in so many years. But Brandon said, and I don't know how this editing has worked, but he's like, we go way back. We came up on Fresh Meat together. She's the kind of person I don't have to talk to. 5 years can pass and everything's exactly the same. And if that's what you think your relationship is with someone, that hurts.
Yeah, and especially since they've been in the house for a week or so at this point, and they had been close. They've talked about this. Like we've seen them sitting next to each other, and it ties into as well. He didn't have to vote for her, and their deliberation prior to the vote, he knew where the votes were going. He could have easily said like, "I'm all in for her going in. I just can't, as a friend, say that." I think that would have went far for Cara. Well, I know it would have. I mean, like we saw that. I do want to backtrack just a slight bit though about Cara reaction and people reacting negatively to her human reaction. I couldn't help but think while this was in front of my eyes, if it had been Laurel in place of Cara in this bottom group, would they still have voted her in against Rachel? Maybe. But if Laurel would have had the reaction that Cara did, people would have been silent. People don't respect Cara, and I can perhaps understand why, but she is not feared as Laurel is. And I think this also is a testament to Laurel being a little bit off her rocker and people being scared of her. Like people love to say that Cara is crazy and has made this show her life and like can't separate it. She would never have a reaction that would make people scared, if that makes sense. I just think the
Yeah.
double standards against Cara are insane.
yeah.
And
No,
here I
think
am.
it's
I don't even
fair.
like Carl like this. Ugh.
I also want to say, like, when I made my like bananas comment, it's mostly complimentary of like when Johnny Bananas was like really kicking ass on this show, he just knew how to like work his reactions in a way to like get emotions out of people, to put targets on them. The way she was talking to Rachel last week, like, hey, the star holders should look out for each other. That felt like a very like Johnny knowing how to like get Anissa to vote on his side on Bloodlines. He threw Nani under the bus in that moment too. But like, there's a lot of like little stuff to that where I'm just like, Kara's playing this game differently in a very selfish way that I like.
Well, and I would agree with that for sure. And I think we see a glimpse of that later in the elimination, which we'll talk about then. But I can see that. I think
Yeah.
the difference is though that Bananas is a vile human, but
Well, and I have to wonder too, with this happening, it's not just this moment, right? Of like, I'm going against a really tough competitor and I might go home. It's, oh, this is what the rest of the season's going to be for me now. So, like, that's a really big thing to, like, be like, oh, I'm going to have to wear this on my shoulders. And I'm going to have to go into underdog mode and, like, fight back. Because if this is happening to me now in week 4, or in less than 4 weeks, right? Because it's a condensed season, this is what the rest of my stay here on All Stars is going to be, and that is a lot. And now I'm looking at this path, and I don't have the friend I thought I had.
I agree. And I have to contextualize too. Like, forget about 39 because that filmed after this. This was Kara's return after allegedly not being caught for several years. Like, if you're the second woman eliminated or third, whatever the case may be, like, not a great look. And I'm with you, Zoe. She probably thought, well, I'll say this first. She's been so positive, and it might have had to be an act. She might be a reformed person, but it also might have been because I've got Cam, Leroy, Brandon, Jasmine, X, Y, Z, people who I think that I've got. And she's realizing now nobody likes me like I thought that they did. And I think that underdog Kara excels. As much as I hate it for her, I think this is going to be good tinder for her flame.
Kara hadn't been voted into elimination since Final Reckoning, and she'd only been voted into elimination one time in her past 5 seasons. So it's also just been a while for her since she's had to deal with the feelings of being voted into elimination.
Big feelings.
Someone else's Rachel's feelings had some, the vote when it ended up being was like, I think Tina had the last vote, and she could have really easily just burned her votes on Nicole and Flora, or Cara, Nicole, any machination that wasn't voting for Rachel or Veronica, and the votes were already decided by that point. Yet she went with the majority and voted Rachel and Cara. Rachel was like, "Wait, you said my name," and led to a little blow up between the two. Not like a blow up, but like emotions were hurt. And what did you guys think of the moment?
So I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here because I said that Brandon could have not said Kara's name. Tina specifically, though, and I think this could have solved all problems with Rachel. Tina specifically went last. She made everybody go before her and said, "This is what it is." Here, like, her vote wouldn't have mattered, so she could have just said that to Rachel, like, "Hey, I'm trying to keep our relationship intact with other people, like, and not rock the boat when it doesn't have to be rocked necessarily." But also, she could have just burned the vote because she was last. Like, I go back and forth here. I don't think there was need for conversation beyond just I was the last person to vote. It wasn't worth throwing Flora's name out and making Flora mad at me. It wasn't worth throwing out Veronica's name because she's also our friend. Like,
I see both sides of it. I understand why Rachel's feelings were hurt. I actually think and this is, I wonder more if, rather than just Tina saying her name, if I was Rachel, I'd be more pissed that she demanded to go last. Because, like,
that's true.
You have your one attempt. You competitively do nothing for my alliance. There's, like, you're not winning. You're not, like, I'm going to have to protect you or give you a star, essentially, because you're not going to do anything to earn it yourself. So, like, the one thing you could do for this team, I'm the muscle, Veronica's the brains. What do you bring to the table? Nothing. So this is what you can do. You have to try to set the pace here in this deliberation. You try and put some pressure on people to change their minds by making them think, hey, the votes might not go the way you think they're going to go. So if I go first and then I ask Jay to go next, the votes could potentially swing in a different direction because people get nervous. Because I might look at Avery if I'm Jasmine and be like, I don't know which way she's actually going to vote. So I might panic and not vote for those people because I don't want them coming back for me. That was the biggest opportunity Tina had here. And Tina doesn't think about the game. Veronica said it 53 times in this episode. Like, Tina doesn't think things through. That's what I would be pissed about if I was Rachel.
Agree, but in the same sense too, I just thought about this. The only other option that didn't involve one of her friends was Cara and Flora.
Nicole.
Was Nicole?
Oh,
Nicole
okay, yeah. I mean, and that's true. Cara and Nicole could have been a good matchup too. We could have said, but Jay would have never. But Jay would have been the only that wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this too, and I know how these confessionals work. If I were Tina watching this back now, I would be a little bit butthurt the way that they're speaking about her. Like, saying that she is stupid, whoa. And I'm not faulting Rachel for saying this either because it probably is true. She says, just Veronica and I have such a special relationship. And then goes on to talk about Tina like she could just be passed off. And this might be because she was frustrated afterwards. But if I'm in a group of 3 friends and I see the others speaking about me like this, I'm not going to feel bad about the decision that I made because there's clearly a hierarchy here, and Tina's at the very bottom, anyways.
Because what does she bring to the table? She makes
More
people
than,
laugh. Like,
well, she brings more athleticism than Veronica.
yes, but I will say this is something I've noticed throughout that.
She does.
She does. But I don't.
There's
know.
no way you can say that Veronica brings more than Tina.
I don't think they both bring very much. I've seen Veronica win challenges. Like I haven't seen Tina win a challenge and
well, I've seen Veronica run.
Yeah.
Veronica does do work socially though, because half the time I see her,
and that's where she takes it.
She's with Laurel, and every time I see them together, I'm like, what? Why are those two hanging out? And then I'm like, Veronica's playing the game.
Yeah, and maybe I just like have a soft spot for Tina. I do think she's far better athlete than Veronica now, not in the past. But that's about all that she brings. But also, like, I don't necessarily think that she's spoken about by anybody in a way that she should be kept around. Like, she's at the bottom for Alliance. So I don't know.
I think Tina's in better shape than Veronica. I think if they were doing some sort of challenge that you needed to like be in shape for, Tina's going to do better than Veronica. But I think depending on what the challenge is, I'd still rather have Veronica on my team half the time because I think that she's just a more competent competitor. It's hard.
They're just both so at the bottom physically that I don't even think it like their physicality even matters. Yeah. And that's where it's like, if you can't beat half the cast in like a run, then it doesn't matter.
I think I'm just butthurt because how they were speaking about her.
No, yeah,
that's legit.
Yeah. If you're Tina, like this episode has to hurt. Like they're like, oh, she's in the bottom of every daily challenge. She's
stupid.
She's stupid. She doesn't know how to play the game. She doesn't know how to do this. That's the reunion. That's the last time we're gonna see all 3 of them together, most likely on a show, unless they're back for All Stars 5. Like that's not a great look. And also, do you guys want to talk about the sidekick thing or what's going on there? Apparently, or that a lot of people were referring to Tina as Ayana's sidekick.
Oh.
Which I mean, being the sidekick of Ayana during what we just saw last few episodes has not been a great stretch for Tina here.
Yeah.
Tina's always been someone that loved to stir the pot, like always. And I think that Tina, I mean, look at how her good friends are talking about her. If she's feeling a little socially isolated, like, why not team up with the most hated person in the house? She just like gives me the energy of like she wants to be the little devil on someone's shoulder. Like, fucking their life up.
Yeah. And I think the way that Veronica sees coming on these shows, as she said herself, as like a vacation, Tina sees it as a chance to just be messy, which is maybe her own version of a vacation. I don't know.
I have a sense this might be what she does in her regular life too, though.
Hmm.
Can you just see her on like a housewives show, just being messy as hell all the time?
Oh, yes. I mean, reboot Dallas, bring her back on there.
Tina for Housewives. Book it. Now, elimination time. We get to the arena. It's Rachel versus Cara. So, are we going to get a pole wrestle? Are we going to get a hall roll? Are we going to get balls in? Are we going to get not so fast? Are we going to get one of the most iconic eliminations ever for a battle between two of the greatest women who have ever competed? No, we're getting a carnival game. Probably one of the biggest carnival games this show has ever seen. And it's frustrating.
It was frustrating in and of itself, but this carnival game, which was basically a checkerboard with free spaces, penalties, rewards, but the option to accidentally get yourself out with these flimsy little whatever you want to call them, like I hate that. Like if they had their own separate boards and it was like they had to aim, like that would make it slightly better, and that's like raising it from a -6 to a -5.5. Why? Why not make this physical? Genuinely.
If people were pissed about the mercenary eliminations on 39, I was seeing red when I realized what the elimination was that they were doing. It is, I'm going to go as far as to say, it is so disrespectful to take two of the greatest physical female competitors, or just competitors, that this show has ever seen. I don't care what you had planned out, MTV. You had a whole 24 hours to set up a different elimination. This was such a waste of a potential blockbuster TV moment.
Set out a poll.
Literally, put something in the sand and let these two women go to work. I was like going through these scenarios in my head of like who might win based on their strengths physically. Like I think Cara's physically stronger, but I think Rachel's a smarter athlete. But I think Cara's younger, but I think Rachel, like, there's just all these different ways it could have gone for a physical elimination. And that's what they wanted. Like, and I will just double down. I think the elimination we watched would have been hilarious if it was Jasmine and Tina.
For sure.
Like, if I get that elimination with two boneheads who can't do anything, I would love to watch it.
TJ makes the comment. These eliminations are made. This game's made so anybody can win. Sure. I would even like to have seen them in the elimination from last week with Cyrus and Kifla. Like even that would have shown me some physicality. This was just dumb. But I think before we talk about it and get more mad, because we can get irate about this, he asks Cam and Laurel if they would like to go down. I don't blame either of them for not going down. But Cara, again, I think this is where Allan is exactly right that pulls the Johnny Banana. She is trying to get some reactions out of people, and she really seems to just be targeting that towards Jasmine, and she hook, line, sinker takes it. Brandon screamed at her, "You've not talked to me in 8 effing years," which, as Zoe mentioned earlier, he had that confessional saying, "Our friendship is not one like that, yada, yada." Cara definitely seems like in a dejected place. Big Cam fan, love Cam. Cam had a confessional that said Cara is really acting like, and I can't remember verbatim, but it was something to the effect of someone without any friends. And I'm like, she doesn't. And you spearheaded this. And sure, Cara's actions in your mind might have spearheaded it. But like when Cara got voted in, Cam could have easily, and maybe she did, we just didn't see it, could have gone to Cara and been like, this sucks. I hate that this is happening, but like, you're a strong girl. You got it. Game aside, wish you the best. Anything. But I feel like it's such a trend for Cara to be on shows and to just be left out so much to the point that she feels like she is isolated because she is isolated. Even Laurel was like making like faces about things that Cara was saying. I'm like, this is a 2-time champ who's really good. And I don't know. I don't know why that rubbed me the wrong way. And I love Cam. I would defend Cam over Cara most times. But like Zoe said a couple weeks ago, this really probably is Cara's redemption season because I'm feeling things for her.
I think it's interesting that she's like targeting Jasmine and this anger, but I really think it's only because Jasmine is coming back and meeting her with twice the energy that she's giving to her. Like, I think if Jasmine had just sat there and been like contrite or even just indifferent, Cara would let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But Jasmine can't do that. That's not something she's capable of doing in life. And yeah, I mean, I just think that Cara's, like you said, I think she's just feeling really isolated. And if she's like, if I'm gonna be alone, I might as well like really take this camera time back and
Right.
be the star of the show.
Well, and in Jasmine's defense, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I think that Jasmine actually probably can control like her outburst now, but she knows she's not winning this season. So like, how am I going to make it into the edit? This is the best way. And I can't blame her at all.
We've gotten dramatically more Jasmine than we expected when we did our cast preview. When we talked about it, we talked about how she's just not one of the biggest personalities. She's not a threat to win at all. And yet, through 4 episodes, we had to talk about her a decent amount. So congrats to her for being talked about by us. I don't know what to say other than because like really, nothing Jasmine says really shatters the earth for me. She's on our account. She's on TV. Now, back to the elimination itself. Cam and Laurel decide not to, and I see Laurel's brain is like, I think I'd be pretty good at this, but also this is just so weird and so random that it feels like anyone can win. And man, this elimination is so dumb. It's just so dumb, and it's not the first time either, too, because I mean we've had 2 Johnny Bananas and West eliminations that were awful. We had Corey and Nelson kicking soccer balls, which I think it's the biggest comparison to the elimination we saw today.
Yeah, they did poorly, of course, but it was also stupid.
And I also think there's a learning curve to it, right? Like they're throwing axes, which are also kind of ninja stars. That's like the best way I can describe what they're doing. And the way they win is by hitting 3 pieces on this checkerboard wall that have their opponent's picture on there. I think the first time you pick up one of these objects, it's weird because you see by the end of it, Rachel can throw. She's an athlete. Cara's not great at throwing. Like, this is my like softball coaching judgy. Like, I know what it looks like when someone knows how to throw a ball. So whatever. Rachel can throw, but Cara can play a game. So, yeah, I think there's a learning curve. I don't like that they set these 2 women up to be embarrassed also. Like, it's so annoying to me. I'm not gonna get over this one for a while. The money that was left on the table here is just insane. The clips they could have used from it for years to come. Any physical elimination, any endurance-based elimination, because they're 2 most fit people on the cast. Like, and this, they're just like drunk people throw axes in bars. Like, that's what they're doing.
I mean, even not so fast. Like, I know they wouldn't be like physically going against one another, but it would be a testament to their endurance, their strength,
strategy.
anything. Yeah.
Even if it was the one that Jordan and Kieran did in 39,
right.
something physical, something where they're actually using their insane physicality for.
To me, pole wrestle was just the no-brainer.
That was a no-brainer. There should have been a pole laying on the sand. The music that would have gone with it. It would have been nuts. And I really have no idea who would have won, which is really why I want to see it.
Well, and I also don't know what Cam and Laurel would have done either. Like, if your production, put that pole down there. I guarantee you Laurel would say, give me Rachel's spot. and also guarantee that Cam wouldn't get up after that. But then we'd have Laurel versus Cara in a pole wrestle.
And I think they're more well matched now than they ever have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like Kara's biggest strength is her arms versus anything. Where it's like when they did balls in, and it's like Kara didn't know how to tackle as well as Laurel. But when it just comes to just the arms, play the bigger factor, could be equalized a lot. That
and
you know,
endurance, like endurance of those muscles, like
yeah.
Kara's definitely in better shape too.
In my head, though, and I'm irritated with Laurel, if you can't tell, I still think Laurel wins just on size and her pure rage at the thought of losing to Cara. But there's so many scenarios that could have been great had we not gotten this carnival game, which I don't even see a point in like talking about their throws and like what the score ended up being. I think, can we just say who won?
Yeah, I don't. Kara wins the elimination.
Which I think also we've known based on the trailers we've gotten for the future parts of the season, because duh.
Right. Like she has to stand on her leg twice and she gets to move up once. Like all these things are not like talking points for anybody who watches the show. So like
it's a slap in the face to these women. It's really a slap in the face.
Well, and for Rachel, who has not been on in years, and I'm sure they've been calling her nonstop to get her back. What? Like this is how you're going to like let her shine? To which she says, "Who knows if I'll be back? Never say never." But I wouldn't blame her if she didn't. I do like that when people say, "I'm fine. I'm going back to my wife, my kids, my life," because that reminds me that this is not everything to them. I mean, there are people who leave these shows distraught, and it's cool to see like how much they like want it for themselves, but also like the flip side of she doesn't need this.
Rachel was just giving stable throughout this entire episode, right? Like they get voted in and she's just hugging people and she's like, I get it. It's a compliment. Everyone's scared of us. She says it again in the arena. Like it's all respect between her and Cara. I think in some ways it's a weight off of her shoulders because she was looking down the barrel of trying to carry Veronica and Tina through this game, which God bless her. Good luck. Yeah, it's gonna haunt me for a while. It hurts. Especially, with the respect women's sports is getting lately. That like we have it's like I know this isn't a sport, but we have two athletes ready to throw down in some sand and you send them to the country fair. Like
I think it was Rachel who said people in the house just want to throw in all the strong women. I'm like, nope, the women are just the strongest players here. And it's very clear that like men sometimes exist on this show, but this is for Challenge All Stars 4. It's a women's show that men exist on. Like, it's sad to see Rachel go, and I do think she was more emotionally prepared this week because of last week where she got thrown in. And I think she just knew like this is the way the game is going. And I would say Cara is now on that same page where she's like, oh, this is the way the game is going. She has to steal a star, or she has to give Rachel's star to someone. And first she says Laurel's name because like Laurel might actually be her best friend on this show, of all people now. And then Cara has a moment where she thinks about it and she's like, well, if I give it to Laurel, the next week is it just going to be me versus Laurel again? How about I give it to Jasmine? Because I don't like Jasmine right now. It'll put a target on her. And if they throw me in against Jasmine, well, I'm not losing to Jasmine in literally anything.
And also, like, how fun is the moment to like go walk up to Jasmine after winning, after she sent you in, to give her that star when Jasmine knows what that is? I go back and forth on whether or not it was like the best decision because Cam made some type of comment that I found myself agreeing with in the moment. I don't think it was a weak move, but like I definitely see the strategy behind it. But like when it comes to stealing stars going forward, they're going to steal Cara's star, like without question.
I don't know about that.
Well, I feel almost certain that I would rather take Kara's star, jeopardizing her getting one further, than taking Jasmine, who's never going to win one back.
Which woman do you think is going to win here? What women have the chance of winning a daily?
Well, this is true, but what I'm saying is, like, Kara could find herself in the bottom again. She just did. Like, but Kara could also find herself in the winning group and not get the decision on who goes in, and it could be Jasmine versus Tina. Well, let's think of Avery versus Tina. Avery wins. She might steal Kara's star.
Not if she won. They can't steal from the person who won.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe it is smart. I still think, well, I actually don't think it would have been smart to give it to Laurel because, like I said earlier, nobody respects Kara. Like, she's screwed either way.
Yeah, I think there's so many layers and so many possible ways it could go. I don't think there's any one correct decision. I don't think her decision was wrong. I think if she's trying to put a target on someone, go put one on Jasmine. I don't think it hurts. I have a hot take, and I think that she should have gained Rachel's star and been able to take Veronica's, because the whole point of winning an elimination is you're supposed to be able to steal one. She earned that star, and I think she should have been able to have all three and chose where they went. And I don't think she should have necessarily even had to steal from Veronica. She should have been able to steal from other guys if she wanted to, because that's what they said. When you win an elimination, you get to steal a star. They made Rachel do it.
Yeah, because had she beat,
that would be like a whole other wrinkle in this.
So we also have not seen a situation where someone who doesn't have a star beats someone in elimination with a star. That's something we have not seen yet. And in that scenario, I assume you just absorb that person's star and there is no more stealing at that point. I feel like that's like fair to guess, right?
That's what they showed us with this elimination. That would make sense, right?
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So that is the scenario where, you put Jasmine or Veronica in where people are going to go after them instead of targeting Kara. I think that's where more the mindset is at. And that's why I think Kara's move, there's actually validity behind it, especially when we've already seen what happens when two strong people are up against each other. And I do think that people like Laurel aren't going to steal from Kara in this scenario now, because I think they know what gameplay, they know what Kara's thinking, because Kara is very much like, I'm protecting my star, and if you don't steal mine, I'll protect yours too.
I think the women most likely to win a daily challenge are Kara, Laurel, Avery, maybe Nicole, depending on what happens, and Cam. But again, it just depends on what the challenge is. So I think that it makes sense for Kara to give it to Jasmine, because I don't think Laurel or Avery are going to take a shot at her. Not a head-on shot. Like, they might vote her in, whatever, but they're not taking a direct hit.
I agree. And I was about to say Laurel will, but we've not gotten to the blow we've seen previewed to us. So you're right. I don't think she would at this point.
No, not yet.
Congrats to production on this format. We're actually having to think about the game in like unique ways and like player relationships and who would steal whose star and who could win. You know what? There's a lot of Survivor-esque stuff to this game where it's like we got to think about it like it's actual chess game rather than just get to the final and win. We got anything left? We good?
We get our scenes for next week, which is the episode that I've already seen. We get the preview that Laurel and Nicole are back on like crazy. And Veronica even saying in the little teaser that like we are seeing a toxic relationship rekindle right in front of our eyes. What can we do about this? I'm scared. We also see Kara and Cam kind of go out a little bit. I think it's going to reach a head, an ugly head next week. Next week's episode is going to be really good.
I never thought I'd see the day that I was Team Kara over Cam in this scenario. And I don't think either of them are a villain at all. I think that Cam has become a little bit emotional for good reason, right? She's playing for something much bigger than herself at this point. I think it's so valid. I think her wanting Kara out of this game is so right and valid. No one should want Cara Maria in this game. But I don't necessarily agree with the reasoning she's giving us as viewers for why she's turning on Cara. I would much rather see, hey, you're a threat. I'm trying to take money home for my family. I'm trying to have that wedding. I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to take care of me and the people I love. And you're in my way. That I totally respect. But I'm not here for the Cara didn't vote the way I wanted her to vote that one time, even though things went the way that I wanted them to, and now we're not friends anymore.
Which Brandon did a podcast recently and said that Cara was the last vote. It wasn't like an editing thing. Like Cara was last. So like I understand momentary frustration. But like, all right now. It's done.
I'm excited. We're getting two massive characters going head on. We got a rivalry. We got the most toxic relationship on the planet. And it looks like we're getting a zany daily challenge from the Duel 2 back again. So I think we're going to have a really good episode.
It is. I'll give you the precursor. It is. It's got everybody buzzing.
I'm excited. I haven't felt this way in such a long time.
Me either. It's also because it took so long for the season to come out, but that's a different point. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, on YouTube here, wherever you get a podcast. Have a great weekend, everyone.